Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that'll have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. The Uncanny X-Men 168 from 1983. We still have the Dave Cockrum corner box. And here we have Kitty Pryde. So we are finally picking up where we left off after the Brood saga. Look at that. I love this cover. There's something, for some reason, I really enjoyed this era with Paul Smith as the penciler. Paul Smith is the artist of the cover, no inker. He is doing it all himself. Um, I actually do own the classic X-Men issue as well, but as I shared before, I actually encountered this via the trade paperback. Look at that. Adam Hughes is the cover artist. All right. A Stan Lee presentation starring the Uncanny X-Men. Chris Claremont, writer, Paul Smith, penciler, and Bob Wyacek is our inker. Orzechowski and Ween are our letterer and colorist. I don't believe Orzechowski misses any more issues. Louise Simonson, yes, I know it's Jones at this time, is the editor with Jim Shooter. And the title of our story is actually Professor Xavier is a Jerk. And we've got Kitty Pryde here making sure to let us know. So we can see here it's winter. He's the cruelest, meanest, most heartless man on earth. I have a playlist. Feel free to check it out to know why she's so pissed at the professor. I've also have a playlist for the New Mutants. So I have, just to make things simple for you, I have a Chris Claremont reading order where I have both X-Men, New Mutants, soon to be Wolverine, soon to be Excalibur, even the X Factor will go in there. Then I have the X-Men by itself, and I have New Mutants by itself too. So feel free to check out anything you feel you may have missed. And so Ileana here, who is a grown up, or not a grown up, but she went from she aged 7 years, so she's like 13 now or something. And he's saying he's doing what he thinks is best, Kitty. And Kitty says, "It isn't fair, Ileana. I've earned my place among the X-Men. All of them say so. Why won't the professor listen? Why is he treating me like a child?" And Ileana just says, "Because you're acting like one." And Kitty's like, "Aha." And she says, "Some friend you are." And Ileana says, "I am your friend, dummy. That's how come I can talk to you like this. Um, You've been ranting nonstop, making everyone's life miserable ever since you were shifted from the X-Men to the trainee team, the New Mutants. It's getting boring. And don't tell me what is or isn't fair. You didn't spend half your life in a demonic limbo." "Oh, Ileana, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you," says Kitty. "What's done is done, Kitty. Wishing or griping won't change a thing." Um, Very adultish. When adults write kids, it can be a little you know, because I don't know if kids would come to that wisdom, but sometimes they do. Some kids do surprise us, but most kids do not. So, but if we don't hurry, we'll miss the bus into Salem Center, which means we'll miss dance class. And if that happens, you'll really have cause to be miserable. And it says here the girls race down the drive towards Gray Mountain Lane, unaware that they're being watched. So, all right, by alien eyes. He hasn't been here long. He hates the weather. and the hunting has been poor, and he decides is a that that he decides is about to change. So, what's going on? Now, we're getting ready for the Wolverine limited series between Claremont and Frank Miller, which I will be covering. And so, here we have Wolverine and Nightcrawler. Most of my life I've been a loner elf by choice. Sometimes a body needs solitude. This is one of them. And Nightcrawler says, "Where are you going, my friend?" "North and west to home ground, the Canadian Rockies. I should be back in a couple of weeks. Try not to need me till then. After what we've been through, Wolverine, a vacation will do us all some good." Um, there's, there are, okay, there, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce. I would just say there are, Kitty and Ileana. "Do you mind if we give them a lift to town as I drive you to the airport?" And Wolverine says, "Nope. I wish I knew some way to cheer Kitty up. She's been in such a foul mood lately." "With good reason, pal. Charlie gave her a raw deal." And Wolverine's grabbing his jacket here, and he's, of course, has his backpack. "Do you really think so, Wolverine? Isn't she a little young to be a superhero? Ours is a highly dangerous profession." And Wolverine says, "So's war. Not so long ago, boys of 12 went to sea as naval midshipmen, expected to conduct themselves as officers and adults. And what's with the change of heart, Nightcrawler? You argued just as vehemently as the rest of us when Charlie made his decision." And Nightcrawler says, "I like to understand both sides of a question. Many of those midshipmen were wounded, maimed, killed. Do we want such a fate for Kitty? Have we the right to place her, a child, at risk?" And Wolverine says, "We're at risk from the moment of conception, pal. There are no guarantees for anyone anywhere. She could be killed or injured just as easily living a normal life." That is very, very, very true. Life, as the saying goes, is unfair. It is what it is. So Nightcrawler says here, "There's been no opportunity to properly determine the extent and capability of her powers without knowing what she can or cannot do." And Nightcrawler is also putting on his coat. I love how Wolverine gives it to him as well. Just pretty cool stuff here. So she could be as great a liability to the X-Men as an asset. And then it says something in German that I don't know what that means. Nicht wahr? And Wolverine says, "I can't deny that." So Nightcrawler continues, "So perhaps her professor's deal wasn't quite so raw after all." And Wolverine says, "A decision can't be logical and sensible. Sorry. A decision can be logical and sensible and still wrong," says Wolverine. "Since the kid joined, she's functioned as a full-fledged X-Men. She's faced death and worse, and never let us down. She's proved her worth, time that cancels every other argument. To me also, unfortunately, we weren't the ones who need convincing." Now, I understand that there are no real shoes to fit Kurt Wagner. I know it's Wagner in the U.S., but however, I don't think he's not a hobbit. So the cold would, he would feel the cold. So, all right. We're in the danger room, and of course, Professor Xavier's legs have been healed, but he's having issues kind of getting them going because his mind sort of won't let him. And so Lilandra here, "Are you ready, Charles?" she says. And he grabs that, "As ready as I'll ever be." And he grabs that and gets up. "I'm up, Lil. So far, so good." And Lilandra says, "The biotelemetry bellies his jaunty tone. He's under a terrible strain and it's getting worse. This shouldn't be happening. To save Charles' life, a new body was cloned for him and his mind transplanted. This is one is a perfect specimen where the original was crippled, its legs irreparably shattered. He should be able to walk at ease. And if you're wondering when that happened, I have a playlist as I mentioned before. So, yet he cannot. And so, uh, Xavier here is like one step at a time. That's the ticket. Never dreamt could be so hard. Focus, concentration. The pain is not real. It it can it must be denied. Nothing is wrong with me. And so he's trying to take a step here and he falls. It's all in my mind, but the mind is powerful. Charles, yells Lilandra as she goes out. Beloved, are you all right? I couldn't stay on my feet, Lilandra. Lie still. Don't try to move. I did my best. Fought with all my strength and still failed. And she says, there is no shame in that. The readings were off the scales. The agony you endured must have been indescribable. So, how's this for irony, eh? My mind can do so much, yet it cannot cope with the phantom psychosomatic pain. So, it expects agony wherever I stand because that has been reality ever since my legs were crushed. And now, even though I am physically cured, it responds as if I were still crippled. And Lilandra says, "You will recover. You will recover, my love, in time." And he says, "I wonder." And so you can see her hugging him. This is one of the things that made X-Men so great with both teenagers and adults is this soap opera-ish that Claremont just continued. Chris Claremont is one of my favorite writers just because of what he was able to do with the X-Men. It just, man, oh man, it was a good time. I hope you guys go back, and if you don't own these issues or trades or anything, however you can get them, it's just worth having. These are wonderful stories to read over and over again. So Xavier says, I can cope, but only by focusing all my will, my resources, to that extent that I can, to the extent that I cannot then draw on any of my psionic powers. And the experience, even as short a one as this, is so debilitating that I'm virtually helpless for some time afterwards. My choice, evidently, is my walking versus my usefulness to the X-Men. And she asks, and you will sacrifice personal desire for duty? And he answers, I suppose. Why? You look troubled, Lil. What is it? And she says, when the Starjammers leave Earth, I'm going with them. My sister Deathbird is mad, Charles. I cannot abandon my empire to her. I must try to regain my throne. And he says, stay, Lilandra, please, I need you. And she says, come with me. And so he says, I did so once before, remember? And that decision cost Jean Grey her life. And he says, do you blame me for that? No. The fault was mine. Her fate was sealed. I fear the day we met. So, man, oh man, deep stuff here. But there are more mutants appearing every day, and I seem to be the only person prepared and equipped to help them. How can I abandon my trust? How could I live with myself if I did? And she says, would you have me be less honorable than you? We both have commitments we cannot deny. So, and we continue here as they hug. But someday, Charles, all will be well once more. All that is wrong put right, and the happiness we yearn for will at last be ours. Oh, but they're being watched again by something. So, and so now we are with Steve Hunter. She's the dance teacher. She's also appeared in the New Mutants. So, and you can see here Kitty practicing her dancing. And Stevie says, "It would help if you stayed on the beat for what it is. That's what it's there for. You've done this piece before, Kitty. It isn't that difficult, but you've botched it every time today. What's ailing you, girl?" And Ileana's like, "Take a guess." So, "I'm trying, Stevie, okay? Yeah, trying too bloody hard. Dance is hard work, but it's also supposed to be fun. Relax, kitten. Flow with the music and the movement. Don't fight them." So you can see Stevie's kind of snapping her, and Kitty's like, "I'm in a fighting mood." And Stevie says, "Want to head over to the high school, put on some gloves, and spar a few rounds?" "Darn, darn, darn! Why am I yelling at you? It isn't you I'm mad at." Kitty says, "Is X-Men being, sorry, is being an X-Men that important to you?" asked Stevie. "It's what I am, Stevie, where I belong. We're a family, don't you see? The X-Men are as close to me as my own parents, in some ways closer. But by shifting me to the New Mutants, the professor's saying that isn't so. It's tearing me up inside, Stevie. Know any I don't know anymore what to do." There we go. Sorry. And Stevie says, "Resolve it, kiddo, one way or the other. At the moment, you're no good to yourself or anyone else." "Great. How?" "Charles isn't an unreasonable man. If you present a strong enough case, he's sure to change his mind." And Kitty's like, "Don't bet on it." So, so we're going to get a couple more life lessons here. And Stevie says, "You want to feel sorry for yourself, Pride? Then do it somewhere else. I got no time for this. Life is lousy. No argument there. What matters is how you cope with it. Take your anger and do something constructive with it. Fight for what you believe in. Prove your case, Kitty." And Kitty says, "Do you think I have a chance?" And Stevie says, "What have you got to lose?" And Ileana says, "Incredible. I've been telling her this for a week now. Why didn't she listen to me?" And Kitty says, "Okay, you guys, I'll give it my best shot. If you think I've given up, Professor, if you think I'm beaten, you're in for a surprise." So now we've got the next day, or the next morning, sorry. So here is Storm, and says how cold it is. Of course, Storm's power keep her at like a stable thing. But here's the thing, again, she should, even though the weather may not affect her, she should still feel cold. So, "I have been away from Earth too long," she says. "It's good to be home." And then, of course, she does what she always does, which is get naked. So, and it says here, "I didn't summon this storm. What is happening? A wind I can't resist blowing me off the ridge, my teeth chattering. I'm cold. But my body is immune to temperature variations. It's over. Wind, lightning, everything as sudden as it began. I attempted a communion with the primal elemental forces of the earth, those which sustain my power and which, importantly, my soul. And they have denied me. Why? What does this mean?" she thinks here, asking herself. And it says here just that she suspects what's going on. So we'll find out eventually here. So Professor Xavier and her are playing a game of chess, and she's saying, "I can go places Nightcrawler can't. No prison can hold me, and darn few weapons can hurt me. I'm smart. Oh, checkmate, Professor." And so, and here, after a workout, "I saved the X-Men's life, Professor, more than once. They need me, and you know it. Only you're too pig-headed and stubborn to admit it." And then she's cooperating here. "Where do you want this stuff, Professor? Oh, you're right. You were right. I can phase objects along with me, and the more I practice and hone my concentration, the greater the mass I can affect." And then flattery here. "Gosh, Professor, I don't know what I'd do without you. I tell everyone that my professor is the handsomest, nicest, most wonderful man." So, all right. And so Cyclops has returned to Florida looking for Alitus Forrester, whom he had a brief relationship with. And again, I have a playlist that you can um, look at. He had a brief relationship after Jean Grey had passed. So feel free to check it out. Um, and Cyclops says Dad had business to take care of before we head off to Alaska to see his folks, my grandparents. We used to visit them when I was a kid, he said, but I barely remember anything from the orphanage. I can't picture their faces or moms. Anyway, since I had some time to myself, I figured I'd look up a friend. Now that I'm actually here, though, I'm not sure that was a good idea. I've been away for months. Lee may not want to see me. And so this guy's talking to her here. And so he's going to give her the wrench and says, don't say anything. Here you go, boss. And she's like, oh, boss of time. Hey, you're in Paolo. Afraid not. Merry Christmas, Lee. And so she comes out and gives him a huge hug and yells, Scott. So here, though, now it lets us know they had dinner, and he tells her of their recent adventure. So that would be the Brood Saga. And I also have a playlist with just the Brood Saga. So I got lots of playlists, folks. So feel free to check them out. Um, so Cyclops says, since we returned to Earth, my dad discovered his folks were still alive. Ever since I was a kid, I thought I was an orphan, and now, out of the blue, I've got a father and a grandparents, a real family. They live in Alaska. Dad's going to take me and my brother Alex north to meet them. I hope they like me. And she says, and what's not to like? Will you be coming back? She asks him. He says, I'd like to, for a visitor or to stay, she says. I don't know. You look different. I let my hair grow. Don't change the subject. It's nice. So are you. Nice. Nice, she says here. So, why are you angry, Lee? Is it something I said or did? No, yes. You walked into my life, Scott. Things have been crazy ever since. And he says, Lee, I can't lie to you or make a commitment I'm not certain I can keep. I care too much for you. I'm sorry the last thing I wanted to do was hurt you. I'll go. And she's like, take one step, Buster, and I'll deck you. Your world terrifies me, Scott. I could never be a part of it, even if I think, if something, okay, even I think if that's meant losing you, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That was terrible. I'll just keep going. So somewhere along the line, I guess you've got a choice: the X-Men or me. But until then, we have each other, and for a while, we can be happy. So they're gonna have a moment, probably make out, and here we go. Now we're in Central Park South in New York City, and so this is Amanda Sefton, who is Nightcrawler's girlfriend. And so we haven't seen her in a while. She's a flight attendant. It lets us know. She comes in. Love the screen tone. This place is lit by candles and it's lovely. Except that my roommates are on duty flying out of the country. No one's supposed to be here. Hiya, Toots. And she says, you, which of course we all know who you was because I said it's her girlfriend and you would have known. And I have a playlist, as I mentioned, and we've had adventures. But look at this. Isn't this awesome? This is so freaking cool. I know you have my Banff doll to keep you company and protect you, but I thought this being Christmas and all, you might for a change prefer the real thing. And she's like, yum. And he's got some wine here and a present. So it looks like just about everyone's going to get lucky. And a Rubik's Cube. This is so hard to solve. There is a way to solve them, but I'm just not patient enough. It requires memorizing. There's basically an algorithm that you just follow and you will solve a Rubik's Cube. Um, and so She's like, hard as a rock, thick as a brick. I'll never persuade him. I've tried everything. I don't know what to do next. I'll probably be stuck with the X babies till I'm ancient. She calls them the mutants, the X babies. And here's Colossus and Eliana. And they're calling out for her. And she phases right through. Guys, what you doing? It's cold. Put on a coat then, silly goose. We're off to chop some firewood. Would you like to come along? And she's like, nah, I still got homework. If I let my grades slip, it'll be one more excuse for the professor to keep me out of the X-Men. I'll mull some cider for when you're done. And she says, that'll be great. See you later. All right, so then they leave. And so far into it, we haven't had any action whatsoever. That's one of the things that frustrated um, John Burns so much. But you've seen this. We just had the Brute Saga. There was a ton of action in there. So just like everything else, some issues don't have too much action. Some of them are chock full of action. It just um he just kind of paces himself, and so this is one of these issues where it's just a lot of emotion and a lot of uh as I mentioned, soap opera ish stuff of people just kind of walking and talking and thinking and a lot of stuff. So she goes, I'm so far behind on my studies because of bopping around the universe with the X-Men. I wonder if I'll ever catch up. That's the trouble with being a genius. Everybody expects you to produce between the regular school and my training sessions and the professor and dance class is a miracle I've managed this long, she says. What am I thinking? That the professor's right? I better run a home scan program through the computer to see who else is here. If I'm not brewing hot cider and munchies, I ought to include everyone. What's this? I registered Professor Xavier and Lalandra in the study, Peter and Eliana in the woods, but I'm picking up an anomaly in the lower maintenance tunnels. It isn't a glitch in the system. It's something the sensors aren't equipped to identify. So she puts on her uniform here and she decides she's going to check it out. And off she goes. She puts on the basically the New Mutants uniform, and so she phases through to go see. We're gonna kind of skip a little bit of this exposition here, and so sees this cable, and she goes, Professor Xavier, can you hear my thoughts? I'm in the tunnel. 3 Bravo. We may have a problem. And he says, I comprehend, Sprite. I'm mind scanning the area, but you are the only entity I can perceive. I suggest you return here while I summon Colossus. It could be dangerous. If you can't spot anyone, sir, what's to be afraid of? I'll push on a bit. This could be a false alarm. Rats could have chewed through the cable. And she says, I hate rats. Professor, stay with me. Be careful, child. I hear something. Gotcha! And then she screams here. And the professor's like, Kitty? And of course, it's Loki'd, which we saw in X-Men 166, I believe. And so we have the dragon. She hasn't named him yet. We know that he'll be called Loki, so I'll just start referring him as Loki'd. And the dragon says, oops. And the professor says, Sprite, report. I sense you are conscious. What happened? And she says, I'm fine, Professor. A little blinded and spooked is all. And she says, Dragon, is that really you? And he's like, Coo. You're happy to see me too. That's great. I was so sad when I thought we'd left you behind on Sleeves World. I thought you'd been destroyed along with the planet. So all of a sudden you hear him like kind of like, Rawr! She's like, huh, Professor, help. And so he says, Saturn hunters, the aliens who tried to kill Scott's father months ago, and wrecked this mansion in the process. Sprite, flee from there at once. That was in X-Men 154. It says here, which again I have in the playlist. On my way, Professor. Loki, come on. And then she goes, ah, as it hits her here. And so we're gonna skip her thoughts in here, so you can see she's being knocked down. She's wondering about the dragon, and where's the dragon? Here she is, or here he is, and you can see she's going after these creatures here, and so she's like, "Dragon, are you gonna help me?" Which of course he is. So he of course uses his fire. Um, and Professor S. Sprite, these are immature hunters, hatchlings. A nest must have been established during their initial attack. The creatures are all vulnerable to intense heat. And she says, Loki's already figured that out, sir. And he's like, who's Loki? My dragon. You're what? I'll explain later. Uh, so she takes care of the one, but she's hit from behind with the other and falls. And she's like, oh, that was not fun. Oopsie. So all right, and fires, but Colossus blocks it, and he goes, in my armored form, monster, I am composed of solid organic steel. I'm virtually indestructible. Given time, perhaps you might do me injury, but such time you no longer have. And boom, hits it. Probably kills it, but we're not told that. So I came as quickly as I could. The moment I heard the professor's mind call. I'm glad you did. Kaya, are you injured? I'll heal. You did well defeating two of these Sidri before I arrived. And she's like, I had help. And one of the X-Men, or New Mutants, not quite. Peter, the professor said the Sidri may have built a nest. We've got to find it before, huh? And look at Loki burp because he ate them. Is that what you did, you little Dickens? Left me to fend for yourself while you took care of the nest? It would appear so, says Colossus. And so, all right. We're almost done here. So, Colossus says, the Sidri had infested a storeroom. I saw thousands of eggs, all charred and broken. Kaya insists her dragon is responsible. And how many could such a tiny creature, but how could such a tiny creature do so much damage and consume so many eggs? And Kitty's like, he was hungry. We can't send Loki home, Professor. He doesn't have one anymore. And since the X-Men were partially responsible for that, we owe it to him to look after him. And Professor says, eminently logical, Kitty. If I say no, will he eat me? Loki, don't you dare. So, all right, here. And he says, fascinating. The dragon is intelligent, yet completely impervious to my telepathic probes. There's far more to him than meets the eye. And to Kitty, I have never seen you in action before, Kitty. You show a maturity that belies your years. Perhaps I was in error assigning you to the New Mutants. I suggest a compromise. You may join the X-Men on a probationary status, provided that does not interfere with your education and training. If it does, back to the New Mutants you go without protest or argument. Is that acceptable? And she's like, you bet it is. And so we get one more thing here. We're about to get the first appearance of somebody. And so we're in Anchorage, Alaska. And let's see here, which one is talking? I thought they were supposed to be here to meet us, Dad. So that would have been Cyclops. Be patient, Scott. They run a cargo airline, and this is their busy season. They knew when we were scheduled to arrive. They'll rendezvous when they can. He says, I've never felt so nervous. You're not the only one, son. By the way, nice tan. You evidently enjoyed yourself in Florida. And he says, no complaints. Why, big brother, you're blushing, so this would be Havoc here. Looking for a fat lip, Alex? Not me. You're the fighter in the family. I'm the lover. Besides, we have company. A lovely lady by the look of her. Pop, is that our grandmother? Hi there. I'm here to collect the Summers clan. Are you them? And he's like, oh no. He's like, I'm Scott. And then he says, I'm Alex. But Alex doesn't seem. You think that You think when this was written, because of who we have here, that we would he would be just a surprise, but and I'm Chris Summer, their father, and he's like, have I gone mad? But Dad and Alex see it too. Her voice, her face, it can't be. It's impossible. Welcome to Alaska. My name's Madeline Pryor. So, first appearance of Madeline Pryor, who we all know will become the Goblin Queen and a bunch of other stuff. And I love the screen tone here. Next issue, Angels and the Ugloids. So, alrighty. X-Men 168. Sorry, Uncanny X-Men 168. Chris Claremont, Paul Smith, Bob Wyachek. Like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.